it's an honor for me to be up here with you two gentlemen who are obviously revered by your employees and your investors and others. So thank you for spending time with us at 3BL Forum today.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So it's been a whirlwind. I think when we first toured this great venue, Pier 60, it was when Series was having their 30th anniversary dinner. Tim Cook was the speaker. And, it was a fantastic event. I said, we have to do 3BL Forum here. We had done it in Washington for 3 years. And now it's taken us that long to be able to hold an event. So it's a relief that people actually were able to come here. There was no COVID lockdown. But it's been tough to be a business leader during this whole era. And as purpose-driven leaders, I'd just like to know kind of what you've experienced personally over the last 3 years, starting maybe with JJ, about the COVID experience and coming out of it.
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. I mean, I was a CEO in 2001 when we had obviously the economic impact from the Twin Towers, 2008 and 2009 with the financial crisis, but this one's been different. I would definitely say that when you factor in things that are going on, we have offices in the Ukraine, offices in Taiwan, offices in China. Then you factor in a lot of the aspects of just human safety and COVID and working from home. It's certainly been more complicated. And I think it's brought, as much as it's separated us physically through the workforce, it's brought us together a lot more closely than we've ever been as an organization. So, but I think there's just meteorites left and right every single day. I mean, it's something new in the papers, and it's something new in your challenges that you've got to deal with. And I think that's the big difference. It just seems the velocity and the pace of the meteors is a little bit different than what it's been historically.
Well, NASA just recently was able to steer a meteor from, to prove that you can collide.
We're trying to get them to help us with that.
So, similar meteor experience at Illumina?
Yeah, it's clear that the last 2.5 years have changed so much for so many people, including how we work and how we live. At Illumina, we had the added realization very early on that Illumina and genomics could play a very important role in helping the world fight the pandemic. We were called into China actually at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020, and our teams helped sequence the SARS-CoV-2 genome, the first one, and identify the causative pathogen. And since then, we've been expanding our presence around the world to help countries monitor how the virus was mutating and transmitting. In addition, we worked with vaccine developers like Moderna. Companies like Moderna never had the live virus on their campus ever. Their entire vaccine program was based on data that came off Illumina machines. I remember Stefan, their CEO, telling me, look, you guys better be right, because we're making a big bet on this. And so our team, in addition to trying to figure out sort of how to work and deal with, the pandemic spreading, there were people at Illumina that were working 7 days a week to try and help in terms of the monitoring of the pandemic and creating tools to fight the pandemic. In addition, over that 2.5-year period, a few things became very obvious and important. We realized that we're all interconnected, that what happens in one country does really matter for us. We realized that there's a lot of inequity playing out in front of us in terms of access to vaccines and diagnostics, and that's important for us to address. We saw that playing out around the world, but we saw that happen internally, where we saw injustices being exposed and realized that we all needed to make. And so I think it changed a lot. A lot changed for us, and we have to take on those things, whether it's inclusion or equity or making sure that we understand that we are all in this together. All of those things came to the fore.
Interesting. Well, I'm glad you were right, and it was a big bet, and I've had 5 jabs, and I'm still here, so I'm pleased. So if you were hiring for your replacement today, what does corporate leadership look like today? Your big shoes to fill, and I just wonder how that, obviously you talked about it, JJ, when you talked about the pace and the scope of these things coming at you, but what does it take from a talent perspective to deal with that?
Well, I think I'm a big fan of Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, and I think he has a really good perspective that you've got to lead through empathy. And I think that's a core value of leadership today, and being able to really connect with the needs of your people is probably the most complicated aspect of what we deal with. So I think if that was the path, which was you were going to go put a job description out, I think you got to find a person that
Lead with empathy.
that leads with empathy, for sure.
Interesting.
Yeah. I would add a couple of things to that, because I think you're absolutely right. I'd make sure that people get that today it's very important to lead with purpose. Like, everybody understands the importance of working at a company that is a mission-oriented company. And I think part of the job of every CEO is to make sure that they understand the mission and purpose of the company and continue to tie all the activities that are happening in that company to that mission and purpose. Now, we at Illumina are fortunate that our mission is very clear and improve human health by unlocking the power of the genome. That's always been our mission, and we tie all our activities to that. The other thing I'd say is it's not just important what you do, but today more than ever, it's very important how you do it. People want to work with a company that embodies principles around inclusion and equity and sustainability. All of those things are really important in terms of being able to attract and retain the talent you want in your company. It's also important to our customers that these are important principles for us. And so I'd say purpose-driven leadership, and then focus on the how you work as much as what you work on, and make sure that you are able to attract the talent you want.
Interesting. Alison De Silva with Zeno Group was up here earlier today saying that when she talks to companies that are perhaps confused about having a mature CSR program, then being told they need to be ESG experts, and then having purpose on top of it, how do you manage figuring out which is your first priority stakeholder? How do you guys answer that question in your organizations?
So I think we have a thought process in our leadership group, which is our grandkids standard, which basically says that as a leadership group, we want to try to make decisions that make us want to have our grandkids work there. So we've got to be thinking down the road, what are we going to do to make it where we're excited to have our grandkids working there? But the harder part of the standard is to also make it a place where the grandkids want to work. So these provide two different aspects to it, and I think it's along the lines of what you were saying with having a big vision and making big impacts that unify the entire workforce. So that's where we're spending a lot of our time and thinking inside of our organization. The hard part, to your point, is getting the buy-in from all your different stakeholders, the investors, making sure you've got super good alignment. And I think that all starts with great communication. So we spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I'd say, it's important to not just have a purpose, but then align the stakeholders around the purpose, so that there isn't a conflict between the different stakeholders you have, that you have to work to align them. So for us, for example, one of our core principles is increase access to genomics. And what that means is we innovate to drive the price of genomic sequencing down. We have taken our price of sequencing down over 99% since 2007. It used to be $150,000 to sequence a genome, and we've now announced that you'll be able to do it for $200. Now, from our perspective, we've done the work to say, look, that's not just increasing equity in the world and access to genomics around the world, but it's also good business because it expands the opportunity that we address. It expands the use of genomics across different diseases, from helping fight cancer to infectious diseases to cardiovascular. It increases the scope for research. So it's good business, which then also helps with our investors and our employees who want to work for a mission. So there's a lot of work to be done to continue to make sure that you're aligning around your purpose across all your different stakeholders.
Well, earlier today we had the grandma perspective about heirloom seeds, and now we have the grandkids perspective. So I appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us today, and congratulations on your CEO of the Year awards. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.